Some weapons in TF2 are objectively worse than others, and no matter how much I play with them, or analyze how they perform, or compare them with other weapons, what have you, they're always going to fall short in the presence of better options. That's just a fact. But that doesn't make a weapon any less viable or fun to use. Oftentimes, I see players sticking with a meta loadout for so long that they don't ever consider deviating from it, and I find that a little bit sad. You miss out on a lot in this game when you stick with just one loadout or one class or one weapon. Sometimes you completely miss out on other weapons and items that can change how you experience the game. And for me, lately, there's been one item that quietly got buffed some years ago that no one's really paid much attention to lately. Oh, as the kids say, it's being slept on. And after playing with it for the greater part of the past year, I can say that the Overdose, my friends, is a painfully underrated item. Now, in my opinion, oh dear God, my opinion, the Overdose is a ridiculously fun weapon, and I see it as the only other viable primary weapon for Medic right now. So, gotta say it, here's why.
Here he comes.
There are two main reasons why I think the Overdose has fallen to the wayside. One, the Crusader's crossbow is so damn good that no one ever considers using any other option. And two, the Overdose started out about half as good as it is now. The base functionality of the Overdose, however, has always been the same. This item grants the medic an additive speed boost that linearly increases with every single percent of Uber he builds. This additive bonus starts out at 0% at 0% Uber and ends at the cap at 100% Uber. The first iteration of the Overdose had a speed boost cap at 10%, which is impactful, but in order for players to make use out of that 10%, they had to stay alive long enough to make it to around 75 to 100% Uber. This made the usefulness of the Overdose so infrequently realized that it just sucked. Then, in 2016, Valve buffed the Overdose. They doubled the cap to 20% and they tweaked the damage penalty from 10 to 15%, which brings us to present day. So here is what that speed boost now looks like. For some perspective, at that maximum speed boost of 20%, you're only running 5% slower than a scout, which for a medic is pretty damn fast. The usage of percentages might be confusing some people. I think it's easier to think about movement speed in TF2 in terms of a percentage, rather than a velocity in hammer units per second, because when you convert things into real-world values, things get a little bit weird. The only red text that we have is that 15% damage penalty, which doesn't amount to all that much, because a small percentage of an already small number is, well, you know the deal, a small number. Something else to note is that the Overdose also needs to be out and active in order for the speed boost to work, but more on that later. Also, fun factoid, even at 0% Uber, you have a very tiny speed boost over your base movement. We're talking half a hammer unit per second here, which is less than 1/4% difference. It's so small that it's basically not there at all. Alright, stats are out of the way, you know how the Overdose works. How is this damn thing viable? Before I continue, by now I'm sure some of you are screaming at the top of your lungs and vibrating in your gaming lounges.
According to my calculations, you don't always reach 100% Uber, so you're not always getting the maximum speed boost. All the item is back.
No, you're right. You're not always getting that maximum boost. And I think that it's this fact that drives a very common misconception about the Overdose, in that it's only good if you are near or at 100% Uber, much like how the escape plan is only good when you are at low health. But unlike the escape plan, you aren't punished in a way that is dangerous when you pull out the Overdose. You can quick switch to it whenever you want, and utilize any amount of that speed boost that's currently available to you. I encourage players to start thinking about the Overdose as a movement tool, rather than just an escape tool, much like how the Atomizer is for the Scout. So with these things in mind, let's start off with the most obvious application for the Overdose: running the fuck away. In a very general sense, as you build Uber while using the Overdose, you gradually increase your chances of escaping alive when things inevitably go south and you end up alone. That faster movement speed can let you evade your aggressors long enough until help arrives, until you escape, or until you miraculously manage to kill them. Medics can normally build anywhere between 45 to 75% odd Uber or so per life, which provides an advantageous speed boost if you need to bail out. Aside from running away facing forwards, you can also backpedal faster. All movement speed in TF2 is reduced by 10% while backpedaling, but the Overdose can offset that. This makes you harder to catch up to, and therefore harder to hit, and increases your chances of landing enough syringes to bring down whoever is chasing you. And here's where the fun part starts. Don't neglect the syringes. Even though you dish out a pittance of damage, players often get really cocky and think they can run down a solo medic without consequence. I cannot tell you how many times I've had scouts, pyros, demo men, demo knights, and even other medics charging at me thinking they can get an easy kill. But I have, 40 to 60% Uber, and I'm running nearly as fast as they are, if not faster, while backpedaling, and then I drop them with a flurry of needles. Most players get deep tunnel vision, and I mean Bionicle lore levels of deep, when they're chasing after a solo medic, and they just don't pay attention to the swarm of bees coming out of the business end of the Overdose. They just let their health dissolve away as they try to catch up, and then they fucking die. I also find that you can sometimes rush your aggressors head on and take them down before they figure out what the fuck to do. Since most players don't expect a medic to start bum rushing them at Mach 9 head on with a primary weapon. It's a bit ridiculous what you can get away with. Now, I know I've shown this clip before, but this is just the perfect example that encapsulates everything that I've just talked about. The heavy I'm healing dies, and I get caught out alone. A spy and a Demo Knight medic pair think they have an easy kill, but I have enough Uber and the Overdose to bail out, kill the spy, juke the Demo Knight long enough, and actually kill him. I then get a swing off with my Uber Saw on the med and get out alive. Yeah. But I'm not done yet. There are a lot of subtle things you can do with the Overdose beyond just running away. For example, any amount of faster movement speed can let you catch up with your team if you've been left behind, which lets you quickly reposition and get back to healing. Faster repositioning can let you be more aggressive with your team as well, since if things get too hot in certain areas, you can always whip out the Overdose and back off. You can better juke out spies that are trying to bait you into a face stab. You can bum rush a sniper that doesn't see you and pepper them down. You can bob and weave in and out of combat scenarios to save your skin. You can get more distance if you need to surf an explosion out and away to safety. You can better dodge sudden incoming hazards during combat, like a crit streak push, a soldier bomb, a flog pyro, etc., even if you're with your team. Faster movement speed can also throw off snipers, which can let you cross sightlines in unexpected ways, or fast enough so they don't see you. Hell, even small changes in movement speed can counteract several things that can quickly end your life. For example, with as little as 2% faster movement speed, you walk faster than a spy, so they can't catch up to you and land a backstab. I feel like I've just barely scratched the surface here. All of these things are just a few examples of what you can do with the Overdose. I wasn't kidding when I said the Overdose is underrated. Use it. Yes. Alright, fine, I'll take off the rose-tinted glasses here for a moment so I can address what people think is the biggest problem with this weapon. The number one complaint that I see about the Overdose is that the weapon must be out and active in order to use the speed boost. Some people consider this as a downside. Others consider this as the deal breaker when it comes to using the Overdose in the first place, since you can't heal and move fast at the same time. But I consider this drawback as a really good way to balance out the weapon. One of TF2's major balancing aspects is fixed, predictable movement for each class. On-demand deviation away from normal movement speed is a very powerful tactic in a movement-based shooter. Therefore, it must come at a cost. In fact, every other instance of faster movement speed in TF2 does come at a cost, so the overdoses should as well. On top of this, the overdose does this strange thing in that it rewards players for building uber charge with a greater ability to keep that uber charge. As you build uber and use the overdose, your general survivability increases, meaning the more uber you build, the more likely you're going to be able to keep it. The price to pay for this scaling preservation of invulnerability, tripled damage, tripled healing, etc. is that you can't heal and get more of it while preserving greater amounts of it. I think that's a fair trade-off. And that's it. That's really all I gotta say about the overdose. Hell, I was curious to see just how many people opt to use the overdose in the first place, so I ran a couple of those Twitter, YouTube poll things. Out of over 12,000 of you, that's a lot of people, 80% only use the Crusader's crossbow on a regular basis. The overdose gets less love than the Blutsauger. Listen, don't get me wrong, I was certainly expecting a majority rule in favor of the crossbow, but 80%? Goddamn people, I know that the other syringe guns are lackluster by comparison, but holy shit. I don't know why it's so weird to me how well balanced the overdose is and how so few people use it, but it is very clear to me as to why, and that's because the overdose isn't the Crusader's crossbow.
I give up, that's it.
The crossbow is a very powerful healing tool that has few downsides in comparison to the syringe guns. Not to mention, the crossbow has the same functionality at whatever ubercharge you have, whereas the overdose gets better with time, like the airstrike or the bizarre bargain. But I will say this about the Crusader's crossbow, and please don't hold a Cheeto-dusted knife to my throat and demand I take this back. It's a bit brain dead, at least in the casual environment. There's no penalty for missing an arrow. You're always doing something with the crossbow because you're rewarded pretty much every time you shoot it at friend or foe. It's a win-win weapon with a low skill floor and somewhat high skill ceiling. It's a powerful healing tool, a good damage dealer at range, and a dopamine farm because of the noises it makes when you land shots. It fits the bill for a meta weapon and then tips the waiter. But after using the Crusader's crossbow for years, I just got bored with it. Now, I'm not saying the Crusader's crossbow is bad or you shouldn't use it. What I am saying is that I like the overdose. The overdose is fun. It offers a completely different way to play medic that is a break from the norm, and it lets you pull off really stupid shit.
This is brilliant. But I like this.
Now, before I sign off, I just want to throw in a couple more interesting tidbits. The overdose pairs really well with the quick fix in the Kritzkrieg. You build ubercharge faster with these mediguns, meaning you get to use that speed boost more often. The overdose also pairs well with the ubersaw or the amputator. The ubersaw because, you know, you get 25% uber per swing, making it the melee meta of choice for medics, and the amputator because you can build uber with your healing aura and heal multiple people at the same time. I'd also like to point out that the amputator is a painfully underrated weapon as well, but that's for another day. Maybe. I don't want to step on people's toes too much. You know you can sell that hat for like $1,000 now, right? I say give the overdose a shot. It's a painfully underrated and fun weapon that gets overlooked more often than it should. And that's it. That's the end.